Summary and analysis. The story, A Letter to God by G.L Fuentes, introduces us to the character of Lencho, a simple and hard-working farmer. He lived on the crest of a low hill with his wife and children. From the peak of this hill one could see the river and the fields of corn. As the story begins, the readers find Lencho eagerly waiting for a good amount of rain so that he could reap good harvest. Being a farmer, Lencho's hope rested on a good harvest that in return would bring him good profit. Accordingly, it began to rain and filled Lencho with the hope of a good harvest and good money. With great delight, Lencho compared the raindrops with silver coins. It was supper time, and Lencho's wife, who was preparing food, shared her hope and joy with her husband as well. Yes, God willing. But as the family started to have their meal, Lencho noticed more and more clouds gathering in the sky. The rain increased and Lencho's hope surged as well. These aren't raindrops falling from the sky, they are new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are 5s. However, things took a bad turn with a sudden gust of strong wind that continued to blow and brought along hailstones. Suddenly, in his heart of hearts, Lencho knew that things were not looking good. He was right. The hail continued for an hour and dashed Lencho's hope of a good harvest to pieces. All of the corn was completely destroyed. Nothing was left. Lencho's heart was filled with great sorrow. As he stood in the middle of the field and looked around, he saw no hope at all. The family spent the entire night in great anxiety and sorrow. But in the midst of utter hopelessness, the family was left with one hope, and that was help from God. Lencho believed that only God can help him. All his life he had heard that Almighty sees everything, nothing is hidden from him. With faith beyond measure, Lencho decides to write a letter to God. For a poor man like him, with no money and with no one to go to, his only hope was God. Therefore, the following Sunday, he wrote a letter to God asking for 100 pesos so that he could buy seeds for the next crop and maintain his family till the next harvest. With no second thought, Lencho went to the post office, put a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. Lencho's letter caught the eyes of a postman at the post office. It was indeed unique. The postmaster saw the letter, and although he laughed at first, he instantly realized that Lencho had intense faith in God, and such faith is indeed rare. He wished he had such a faith. Hence he decided not to disappoint Lencho. But on opening the letter, the postmaster realized that Lencho was in need of money. To keep the man's faith intact, the postmaster decided to collect as much money as possible as an act of charity. He himself contributed a part of his salary. Only 70 pesos could be collected. The money was put in an envelope, and next Sunday, when Lencho arrived at the post office, the postman handed him the envelope. A letter was attached with the envelope containing a single signature, God. The postmaster was happy with all the charity work he had done. As he looked on, Lencho opened the envelope and showed not a bit of surprise on seeing the money. He was rather quite angry on seeing only 70 pesos. Immediately he wrote another letter to God. In this letter, Lencho had requested God not to send the money via order, for he was certain that God had sent him 100 pesos, but a part of the money had been stolen by the post office employees. Such a firm faith Lencho had in God that never for once did he lose his trust in Almighty. Character sketches: Lencho, a simple farmer with unshakable faith in God. a very positive soul who hopes for good rain and expects good harvest. When the crop gets totally destroyed due to hail, Lencho is heartbroken. Despite all his sorrow, Lencho retains his trust in God. He decides to write a letter to God asking for 100 pesos. He expresses no surprise on seeing the 70 pesos in the envelope. He had no idea that the received sum was an act of charity by the post office employees. In fact, Lencho was very angry to see such a less amount of money. He wrote another letter to God asking for the rest amount and accused the post office people of stealing his money. His trust in God is unshaken. The way he communicates with God shows that he is a true devotee. He considers God as his very own with whom he can share all his thoughts. The next important character is that of the postmaster. The postmaster is a fat and friendly man. He laughs on seeing the letter of Lencho, but immediately appreciates the kind of faith Lencho has for Almighty. He is a wise and kind-hearted man who comes forward to do an act of charity to keep Lencho's faith in God intact. He decides not to let Lencho know that the money had been collected for him by the post office employees. Hence, he attaches a letter with the single signature God. In a way, the postmaster is also a true devotee of God, for he is kind and believes in charity.